what Cal said is absolutely right in terms of strategy. And I just wanted to thank everybody here on behalf of Flow for Water. Flow for Water was formed 4 years ago after the Nestle bottled water litigation. It was clear to the Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation and myself as their lawyer that even though MCWC won that case by reducing pumping from 400 gallons per minute down to 120 during the critical months in the summer, the change in law and the legislative efforts that had weakened water law in Michigan, as well as loopholes in the Great Lakes Compact, needed to be fixed. So Flow for Water is all about the future of the Great Lakes. We ask you to join us. We're on the www.flow4water. The other thing that Flow for Water did was start a policy center last fall, the Water Public Trust Policy Center. It's the first of its kind, I think, in the nation. What we are going to do, and what we have already started, is looking at the entire water cycle, and by doing so, you can form other things, including climate change, energy, fracking, into the debate and understanding. We have made public education on fracking in southern Michigan, in 2 counties so far, actually 3. Rochester, New York, we've got a whole program of education launching this fall and next year. In addition to that, we have a report coming out that is addressing the angles, as Cal Tillman put it, the angles of how to fight fracking here in Michigan and in the Great Lakes Basin, in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. The other thing, a part of fracking, Wisconsin, while it doesn't have the deep shale reserves, Wisconsin's sand in the western farmlands and forests, they're basically being cleared, and the sand is going elsewhere in the country. It's an absolute disaster in Wisconsin to communities like Cal's. And so remember, it's not only the massive attack on the earth from the fracking itself, but all the materials that come in and go out. With that, I'm going to get it back over to Cal here for the Q&A. But I think here in Michigan, even though the legislature is stalled, that can be changed. Even though the governor is striking out on this issue, that can be changed. And we need to approach this at every level, from constitutional amendment to local government bans to strict regulation, if that's what becomes necessary. And while all this is going on, we can't wait. And that's why I think John Richter and the Asabo Friends of Jordan have made the announcement this morning about moving forward with legal analysis. The Policy Center at Flow thinks that it's all of these. But what we've discovered so far in the last 3 months is that it doesn't matter what's been exempted with fracking in Michigan, particularly, in some of these other states, the laws on the books and the decisions of the Supreme Courts in the states since the early and mid-1970s require this information to be disclosed, and there's no way that they're going to get around it. We don't have to go to the legislature and beg them to do something. We can join together, and let's get the information on the table, and then let's go after the legislature and the oil companies to get this right, so we don't end up with what Cal is warning us about. Thanks, Cal. Thank you.
We'll go through a little question and answer session here. Do I have anybody in attendance from the oil and gas industry, somebody who works in the industry themselves?
They were here, but they left.
Oh, okay. You do? Okay. That's fine. I mean, it's nothing against you. And as long as we're not trying to disrupt the meeting, we're perfectly fine.
Yeah,
So, does someone else have an announcement? Looks like
Ellis does.
Okay, Ellis.
Thanks, Cal. I'll try to talk without the microphone. I want to go out on a limb and challenge Cal and perhaps Jim, and I think other people in this room on the issue of cooperation. People may know that I was a founding member of Don't Frack Michigan, and then I left that organization and became part of Ban Michigan Fracking, and a dispute that was publicized in the media in Traverse City. The issue was ban versus regulate, and Len Cosma, now my wife, and I saw some slippage on the issue of ban, and so that's why she and then I left. But there's an important reason for that, and I think we should have discussion about that. The problem with the regulatory approach is it takes your eye off the ball. Fracking is expanding, it's just start. I think we have a chance to stop it here in Michigan because it hasn't really got started. There's only a dozen or 2 dozen wells that have been horizontally fracked so far. But in other places, there's been a great deal of fracking, and in Texas, Tisch, Texas is certainly an example. But there have been countries, there have been states, there have been municipalities that have banned it within their borders, and we think it's just so important not to lead with our chin and concede the political power of the fracking industry. And if you call for a moratorium, or if you call for regulation that allows for fracking to come back in, eventually we think that that's a losing ball game. Now, after saying that, I don't mean to say we won't cooperate in many logistical matters. People here may know that I'm in the Ban Michigan Fracking, and I are involved in a lawsuit against the state that does not seek to ban. It does seek to regulate. Why would a pro-ban organization be in a lawsuit that seeks to regulate rather than ban? And I confess freely that partly there's a political motive to that case, and that is to embarrass the DEQ and to show that the DEQ is not doing its job enforcing its own rules. So the gist of that case is to apply the rules for injection wells onto frac wells. But it's not, if it were just a political case to embarrass the DEQ, that case should go, the judge would be correct in throwing us out of court. We should never bring a case on that basis. But there is a real and material basis, and that is that the landowners should be able to do baseline testing to before and after, and this case will allow them to be able to do that and provide a material advantage to landowners. And Jim Olson has cooperated, and I acknowledge and thank him for that. Many insightful comments that he's made that allow that litigation to go forward. But I think there has to be serious discussion on the issue of banning versus regulating. I just don't agree that if we put our focus on strict regulation, that we're going to be successful in the end, and that's why we have this constitutional petition to try and ban it statewide. So I put that issue on the floor for everyone's consideration.
Thank you, and make sure that you get with him if you want to volunteer to get the petition signed.
Yes, we need not only people to sign, but to circulate, particularly this coming Tuesday on Election Day. But we have until Election Day in November. We have a 6-month window in which to get 400,000 signatures. As of July 9, we had a little over 20,000. We were just getting started. We're hoping to get the ball rolling more and more and more up till November.
Thank you.
And the question that I have is, when you've been successful, is there a point where you feel the government, a location in the government is what I'm trying to say, where you feel most confident, or that you have been able to have the most impact?
Media coverage, and also a documentary called Gasland was pretty helpful as well. You have to strategize with that too, because there's not a lot of media covering this issue up here. I've had some reporters out at each event, so you have to get them involved, and sometimes their are really good reporters who really do a good job, who really dig into things. And other times you have to help them along. And you know, doing their job for them is okay if it gets the outcome that you want. But media coverage starts making everybody squirm, including your regulatory agencies and your politicians. We got action out of TCEQ because we embarrassed them. A bunch of hillbillies from Dish found something that they could not find. Also, get your EPA involved. Keep aggravating the EPA. Eventually somebody will show up or make a phone call and say, hey, what's going on? So those are some ideas. Again, I read was...
What roadblocks did the state throw in your way when you started pursuing this?
Well, a lot of the testing data, if you look through this report and you look at the lab results, you would be shocked. But when they came out, they said, you know what, it's no big deal. Not that big of a problem. We got it under control. TCEQ showed up to Dish, and they brought the suits down from Austin, and they walked in and said, calm down, we've got it under control. And I am the nicest person in Dish, Texas, to the industry and to the regulatory agencies. These guys show up, my citizens show up with pitchforks and lanterns, and they want somebody's head. And so, after about an hour of berating, they couldn't get out of there fast enough. But we got their attention. And they knew when they left that we're not going to put up with, there's a bunch of poison in your air, but everything's okay. So, they are going to come out and they are going to try and protect the industry. They are going to come out, they're going to do a study that shows that everything's fine. They've done it over and over and over again in Texas. What the frack had a question.
Yeah, I work with Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation, and we are more than happy to come and speak to any groups that would like to have someone come and talk about this issue. We have a newsletter here with contact information. And one of the things that I've discovered is that if you have a meeting and you ask someone from the industry to come and be a part of a panel, and you ask someone from state government to come, they make the case for us. All they have to do is describe the process. And it's a no-brainer that it's a bad thing, you know, so it isn't a bad idea to have them as part of the conversation, because they really make it look, by telling the story, they make it look really pretty bad. But I'm more than happy to come and talk to any groups about fracking. Our organization is in support of a total ban on fracking, and we work with any of these groups that are doing the same thing.
Great, that's a very good idea. Joanne?
I just wanted to say that we had on Christmas Eve, we had a giant, huge release, uncontrolled, undetected release of deadly, toxic hydrogen sulfide gas, and it was from Beaver Creek. It went over hundreds and hundreds of square miles. It was detected when people in Boyne City and East Jordan and Petoskey smelled it. Hydrogen sulfide gas, you can smell it, and then when the levels get higher, then you get paralyzed and it causes death. But anyway, it was called in as a gas leak in the Charlevoix, Boyne City, Petoskey area, and they traced it back to Beaver Creek. If it was never, I never saw it reported in the Record Eagle. There was a very small story in the Petoskey News Review that said that not to worry, people smelled mercaptans, not a big deal. The fact was it was 80% hydrogen sulfide gas. It was deadly, it was toxic. But because of the air currents that went up and it went out, that release was not even called a nuisance. And when I called the Gaylord office a month later, they never even knew that there was a release. And they said that if it had gone east, it would have been a problem. In this area, we don't like to talk about deadly releases of gases in our beautiful, pristine, pure Michigan tourist.
First of all, hydrogen sulfide is a common factor and incident in oil and gas development in Michigan. It typically is bled off from an oil well, or if it's a gas well, it has to be burned off, all right, through the recovery process. All of us in this room are part of this. We are going backwards at such a rapid rate when it comes to hydrocarbon development and this unconventional fracking, which is absolutely the end game of the planet. Heating it up. It's time to move on. This is the kind of thing that it happens. And if it's not H2S, it'll be something else, I can assure you.
Thank you. Thank you. I often wondered if the industry funded the Beverly Hillbillies. Is there any other questions? There's actually a lot of information out about the earthquakes. They've had earthquakes in Ohio, they've had earthquakes in Texas, they've had earthquakes in Arkansas, and a lot of pretty intelligent people are pointing towards injection wells as being a source, a trigger point for those. It certainly would seem reasonable that if you have all of this geological activity going on, that it would cause some problems with the plates under the earth. And so they actually shut several injection wells down near DFW Airport because of this. And Fort Worth, who has been very friendly to the oil and gas industry, inside the city limits of Fort Worth, there's 2,000 gas wells.